to the Skating Lesson Podcast. I'm Jennifer Kirk, a former World Junior Champion, Four Continents Ladies Champion, a U.S. Ladies competitor, a three-time World Team member, as well as the 1999 New England Junior Ladies Champion, the 1995 Bay State Games Ladies Silver Medalist, and the 1995 Monadnock Interclub Competition Showcase Showdown Pewter Medalist. Beat that, Dave Leese!
Well, I am David Leese. I have passed my adult silver moves test and my adult pre-bronze freestyle. I am an Eagle Scout in New Jersey, Blaustein Scholar. Like Rachel Flatt, I am an AP Scholar. I got the Outstanding Effort Award from Fieldstone Middle School in 1998, and I am the Pascack Hills High School Nobility Award recipient for the class of 2004.
Well, you totally beat me with that Nobility Award. I have no, personal accomplishments like that. But we are thrilled today to have Chuck Foster on the Skating Lesson Podcast. We talk about how we interview influential people from the world of figure skating, and Mr. Foster is really one of those such people.
Oh, absolutely. Chuck Foster has been a judge for 58 years. He was the National Junior Pairs Champion with Maribel Owen, skating royalty. He served on the United States Figure Skating Board of Directors for 17 years. He served in the United States Olympic Committee as the Vice President and Secretary for 2 terms from 1989 through 1996. He was inducted into the United States Figure Skating Hall of Fame in 2003, and that same year he was elected President of the United States Figure Skating Association, which he served from 2003 until his resignation in 2005.
Okay, Chuck, well, thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you here. And before you became a world and Olympic judge, president of U.S. figure skating, among a myriad of other accomplishments, you actually started out in the sport as a pair skater. You won a national junior pairs title with Maribel Owen. What was that experience like?
It was great, but it was a bit of a problem. I was a college sophomore or junior, and she was 14 years old. I didn't relate too well to a 14-year-old girl at the time, but it was great fun, and we enjoyed getting together and having become a success, and it was generally a good expence.
Did you and she train under the tutelage of her mother?
Her mother, yes.
How was she as a coach?
Well, all you have to hear is Frank Carroll and Ron Ludington talk. They're her greatest admirers. I found her to be a very tough woman, and she was difficult. Of course, I'm difficult, so two of us like that.
In what ways was she difficult?
Just getting her way, I think, or doing things her way. She was, very demanding. She's a very bright woman. She'd graduated from Radcliffe College. She'd been a sports reporter for the New York Times, and had many successful things. And she knew skating terrifically. She wrote a book about figure skating and figures and that. She was a very articulate. So, and as I told you, Frank and Letty are great fans of hers, as am I. And she coached Tenley, too, in the 1956 Olympics. Mm-hmm. So she's a great coach.
Great coach.
So after winning the junior pair title, why did you decide to move on from skating?
Well, in the days when I was skating, we won in 1955. We skated in senior pairs in 56, but then I graduated from college, and I had to go on with my life, and that's what prompted me to resign or to quit skating with Maribel. And it was difficult because we had been, in those days, it selected the world team from the nationals the year before. So we had been selected for the world team in 1957, but didn't go. And of course, Big Maribel, she called. I was back in North Dakota at the time, and it drove her crazy that I had quit the pair. So, but I had to go on with my life, and that was understood.
Where were you when you heard about the 1961 plane crash?
Actually, I went into the lumber business, and I was on a business trip in Oregon, and I was in well, I've forgotten the town, but I was in a motel, and I got up and turned the TV on, and they said they were all gone, all gone. So I immediately couldn't believe it, and in a state of shock, because they were all my friends. I had just seen them. I'd just been with them after the Nationals and back in Boston, just seen them. And I called the club, Mary Brosnan. I don't know if Mary was there when you were there, but she was the club secretary. Mm-hmm. And I said, Mary, is it true? And she said, Chuck, yes, it's true. They're all gone. Very, very traumatic for all of us. We'd spent the summer, all of us having fun. They had come to Duxbury Beach, the Maribel, the two girls, and a lot of the other skaters who were skating up in Dedham at the time at a rink in Dedham right off Route 128. So that was quite tragic. And I still think about them, every day. Little memories pop up.
Did you ever have thoughts, Chuck, that you could have been on that plane had you decided to stay in the sport?
Well, yes, in that respect, but I had left skating. Mm-hmm. So I've never said, gee, I was lucky I missed that plane. Had I skated, Maribel wouldn't let you quit. So I don't know whether Dudley, the timing was great because for Dudley, he had just come out of the Army. He was come out of the Army in 1958, and he got out in 60, I believe. I went into the Army in 1958, so I would have been in the Army at that time. So he was back. So he easily slid into the spot to skate, and he was a fine skater, and they had a lot of success.
Well. So, and you talk about moving on from the sport, but you didn't leave skating. You then decided to become a judge. And I'm wondering, that's kind of an unusual decision for someone who's just gone to college. You talk about moving on with your life. So why did you make that decision? And what was the process like of moving up through the ranks as a judge? And how does that process compare for judges today who are starting at the bottom?
Well, I think we should encourage young skaters to become judges more than maybe they're doing. While I still was competing, I started to trial judge to become a judge when I was in college. Why did I do that? Because I thought I could do a better job than some of the judges. And so I thought, I would like to be a judge. So I actually became a judge while I still was in college. I was a low-test judge. And I just progressed from there. You went from a low test to intermediate to a high test to a national judge, and then international and championship. It just was a progression. It was a hobby. It was a hobby that grew beyond my wildest dreams for me in that respect. I never thought I would be involved like that, but it just grew. And I fortunately had the time that I could devote to it. We're all volunteers, and it took a lot of time, but it was very worthwhile.
Given the amount of time and travel that go into being a judge, what kind of jobs do most judges have? Because I think many of us have thought about judging, but we only get so many personal days or vacation days from work. Judging a full day of skating tests isn't an option for many. What was your career?
Well, when I came back out of the Army, I had no idea what I was going to do. My father was a physician, and when I was going through college and that, I thought I would go to medical school. Well, I spent too much time at the skating rink, and my grades were lousy, and that then was not an option. So when I came back out of the Army in 1960, I came back to Boston and started looking around at what I would do, whether I would work at a bank or go to an investment bank or do something like that. Through my brother-in-law, I got introduced to a company in Worcester that was a wholesale lumber company. And it was a very Harvard-oriented company. Almost all the guys had gone to Harvard. And we had 3 former Harvard football captains working there at the same time. No company had ever, that I knew, had it. So I went into the wholesale lumber business. And I spent 40 years in that industry.
Now, as a judge, you reached the highest level when you served as a judge on the ladies panel at the 1980 Olympic Games in Lake Placid. This is an event that has been debated for more than 30 years. To this day, many in the skating world, including Linda Fradiani and Frank Carroll, feel that Linda was really robbed of the gold medal, which she lost to Annette Poach. She lost in the gold in part to Denise Bielman winning that long program. Now, on that night, you gave the win to Linda. Have you ever felt that Linda was robbed in 1980 at the Olympics?
I gave the win to Linda.
Yes.
If you look at the ordinal sheet, I was the only one that gave her first place. I thought she certainly deserved to win. So that was my opinion then and now.
And I'm wondering, at an event like the 80 Games, where it is such a close competition between a skater like Linda Fradiani and Denise Bielman, have you ever seen that there's pressure for a judge on the panel who has a skater from their country to kind of feel like they need to promote that skater or have that skater come out on top and persuade the other judges? Did you ever see that during your career?
Of course. One thing you have to look at, or I looked at, was most of these federations in the European countries, they're very small. They may have fewer skaters than the Skating Club of Boston for the entire country.
Wow.
The judges are with them a lot of the time. They don't have many competitors. So they become a sort of a family. They like their kids. And so they promote them. They travel through Europe as the kids come up and up. So they all know each other. We, on the other hand, have a large country with many competitors all over the country. Many times I went to an event and I met the skaters for the first time when we were there. I didn't know them. But my point is, yes, they do want to support their skater. They know them. There are very few of them. And I think it's human nature, maybe, to try to support them.
So do you think it's more of a personal thing where they have this personal relationship and they want to see the skaters skate well versus feeling that that federation wants to promote their skaters?
Well, yes, I think it's because it's like a family, but they're all part of the federation. What I'm saying is the federations are so small that, yeah, they would like to to promote their skaters.
Now, there are often judges we see year after year on skating panels. They become fixtures in the skating world. And there are obviously so many judges who would love to judge at the World Championships or the Olympic Games. If a top competitor like a Michelle Kwan is competing against a close rival like an Arina Slitskaya, does Michelle's success or failure at the event impact the career of the American judge on that panel, whether or not she gets the win?
Not at all.
Okay.
In fact, there has been a complaint a few years ago from, I think, the Olympic Committee that there were complaints that we, the American judges, weren't supporting their athletes enough.
So they want you to cheat, basically.
Well, they want us to support the American athlete.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, what do they mean by the word support, though?
Well, put them in first place.
Right.
Put them in a high place. The Americans have been a desperate group, the judges. They're a little more difficult to get behind a skater, I think. A lot of them say, I call it the way I see it. Whereas these European judges, they're small, the country, they're going to support their skater unequivocally.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see where, as I say, I would go, I never met the skater before,
Mm-hmm.
or that. I didn't have any natural bias. I have a US bias, but not towards the skater particularly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Michelle was the case by herself. Of course, I always thought she was terrific, no matter what. So I was always glad to be involved on the panel.
Mm-hmm. Now, in 1980, the United States had a contender for gold in both the ladies and the pairs event. Given the politics that have played a long history in skating and political strategy that goes into it, does the federation have to angle which gold medal they wish to go after if they do have a...
There was never a conversation like that.
Okay.
Never.
Mm-hmm.
So it just plays out how it is. Now you talk... Oh, I'm sorry.
And in 1980, regarding the pairs competition, given how skating was and that Ty and Randy were going against the Russians, who hadn't lost at that point, do you feel that Ty and Randy could have earned the ordinals to defeat Ronina and Alexander Zaitsev should they have skated clean?
That's a tough question because Ronina had been out the year before in '79 because she had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
So that she missed the whole year. Politically, depending on the makeup of the panel, I think it would have been tough for a U.S. pair to win. Not that I didn't love Ty and Randy too,
mm-hmm.
But just the way the 9 judges work, I think that perhaps the outcome would have been Rodney and Zaitsev. That's just my own. That's just speculation because it didn't.
And when Ty and Randy won their world title in '79, was that the year that the Russians were not allowed to have judges on the panel because there was a weren't the Russian judges banned 1 year?
They were suspended for a year, but I've forgotten which year. I can't recall which year that they were suspended. And I was in Vienna. I was a judge at the Worlds in Vienna in '79 when they won. And, it was an outstanding evening, outstanding performance by Ty and Randy.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, when we talk about these events like the World and Olympic Championships, how important is it for a country to have their best skaters or skater on paper, the skaters who have maybe the most chance at winning a medal, winning perhaps a gold medal, go into that event as the reigning national champion?
I used to think that was very important. And I think it's quite important. In other words, if you take your top skater and they get defeated, and this is under the old system, that worked against them. If all the other countries see that your skater has just been beaten by somebody else, it works against their chances of winning. That's my own opinion.
Do you think it still is important under the new system?
No. Judges have little or no impact.
Just
technical callers, no.
Okay. And you talked earlier about your love for Michelle Kwan, and in 1998, she and Tara went to Nagano, both, some would argue, with equal chances of winning that gold medal, but of course Tara came out with the victory, but she didn't win the ordinal from the American judge. And at the time, there was a lot of talk in the skating world that it seemed like the backing of U.S. figure skating was behind Michelle Kwan, that she really had that support and that momentum, and a lot of Tara fans were up in arms that the Federation didn't seem to be supporting Tara. And in recent years, it makes me also think of Evan Lysacek and Johnny Weir, that Johnny Weir fans said the same thing. So as a member of U.S. figure skating, did you ever see that there is any sort of explicit conversations where officials get together and say, we're going to promote this skater versus another skater, or is that all just fodder among skating fans?
Never happened. I keep coming back to, we have a huge country. We have judges all, they don't get together, they don't discuss things like that at all. I keep coming back to these smaller federations that they do discuss it because they only have one skater. We've got many. And there is no collusion in that respect. The Federation doesn't back anybody particular more than anybody else. You win it on your merits.
And that's really the way that it should be. Well, during your career as a judge, you served as the figure skating member on the USOC from 1973 until 1980, and then you said you were kicked off because you had to get your politics in order. Then in 1988, you were elected as the Vice President Secretary of the USOC, which you served for 2 terms. And I'm wondering, what do you mean by you had to get your politics in order, and how political are these organizations?
Excuse me a minute, I have a cold.
Oh.
Here's the deal. A chairman or an appointee is an annual one in U.S. figure skating. So in 1980, there was a president who didn't like me, pure and simple, and he did not reappoint me to be the representative on the Olympic Committee. So I was. Simple as that. I was off.
Just because he didn't like you.
Then, things changed, and I said, get my politics in order. Another president liked me. I got reappointed. People in the Olympic Committee, after 4, didn't even know I'd been gone.
So do you think it just comes down to having people like you when you talk about your politics? Is that really what it comes down to?
Yes, I think as I say, the president was the person that did the appointing.
Okay.
Now, in 1994, Tonya Harding threatened to sue the United States Olympic Committee for attempting to remove her from the United States Olympic team. As vice president at the time, what was your position on her participation at the Olympic Games?
Well, it boiled down to this. And it had happened before with a diver, Olympic diver, who drove into a group of kids and killed one. They hadn't been found guilty of anything at that point. Tonya hadn't been found guilty of anything. She won a right to go, and they wouldn't, and our position was to let her participate because she hadn't been found guilty of anything. Once you're found guilty, then it's a whole different scenario.
Now, given the many changing stories by Tonya Harding of her involvement in the attack on Nancy Kerrigan, the one assertion that Tonya has made that has always remained consistent in all of her interviews is that she claims a high-ranking official of the USFSA called her and told her to get back with her then ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, for the appearance of stability if she wished to get the marks she deserved at nationals.
That's pure, fantasy.
Okay.
I don't know anything about that.
Do you, given your knowledge of the culture at the time, do you see any possibility that that phone call took place?
I highly doubt it.
Okay. On the flip side, you were also a part of the test gate that allowed Nancy Kerrigan to compete at the Olympics. In 2006, Michelle Kwan had to perform a test skate of her own and went to the Olympics only to withdraw after injuring herself during the first moments of a practice session. There are going to be those forever who wonder if she was too big of a star to keep home, if sponsors wanted her to march in the opening ceremonies. Given her success and star power, what would the Federation's position have been had it been clear at the test gate that she was unable to represent the U.S. as well as Emily Hughes was? Would they have announced if she didn't pass and just say it at a press conference, Michelle skated, we're very sorry, but we don't feel that she was able to go? Or would they have named her to the team and asked her to withdraw herself? What would they do in a sticky situation like that?
Let's see, I'd have to refresh myself with all the rules because the Olympic Committee demands from every participating federation a selection procedure. Mm-hmm. Now, Michelle qualified to be sent with the team because of the approved election procedure, because she was whatever she was the year before. Was she the world champ? She was the U.S. champion. She may even have been the world champion. I don't remember.
I think she was
fourth, yeah.
Yeah.
But my point is, there is a selection procedure that's approved by the U.S. Olympic Committee, that's demanded from all the sports governing bodies, and this was followed. So if she had failed the demonstration, then I think they would have said she failed.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no use sending an injured person, a knowingly injured person, to the games.
And what is...
Same thing with Kerrigan.
Yeah.
I was on that panel and appointed by the U.S. Figure Skating, had an athlete member of the panel and Kelly Cutone, and you know it was in a panel appointed by the organization with a task to see if she is physically able to perform at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
And what actually goes on? You were there with Nancy in '94. What goes on during one of those test skates? What do you have the athlete do?
Do the short program and the long program.
Mm-hmm.
See, she did them. Nancy Kerrigan performed every element in her program, and there was nothing you could do except go out and say she's fine, which we were all pleased with.